All right, it's the B Block Podcast, and I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for being here doing this podcast live. I appreciate whoever is joining once again, and then also whoever catches this on the audio platforms. Only want to encourage you to come check us out over on YouTube, the B Block Podcast. I'm on to react to the Texans' 40-20 victory over the Arizona Cardinals. This was not a surprise. This was what I would call, save for the unfortunate injury to the reserve tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, who left with an injury, and not just left with an injury, but was carted off the field and taken to the hospital. And that was a scary moment in the game, and we're wishing the best for him. But aside from that obvious, serious moment, when it comes to this football game, there wasn't really a whole lot of suspense. This was what I would call a stress-free football game for the Texans. And I want to acknowledge a few Texans as we kind of go over this, right? And also, speaking of injury, there were some unfortunate injuries to Patrick Mahomes and Micah Parsons. Both guys ended up with torn ACLs, would appear to be a torn ACL on both accounts. So I want to hit on that just a little bit. And I'm actually going to have noted Kansas City Chiefs fan Ron the Show Hughley, also co-host of The Drive with Sterner and Hughley on Sports Radio 610, a program that I appear on every Wednesday at 4:40. Going to have him on the podcast later on in the week, probably actually on later Monday, to talk about both the Texans and the Chiefs, since he has divided attention, if you will. Obviously doing the Texan stuff for work, doing the afternoon drive show for the Texans flagship, but also doing podcast work and having a background in Kansas City, a Kansas City native. Going to want to talk to him about that. But we're here to talk about the Texans beating the Cardinals. And again, this was a game. I feel like I can be honest about this now that we're past the game and I'm doing this live. Going into this game, and I kind of talked about this a couple of weeks back, whenever they beat Buffalo on Thursday Night Football, and we were doing the breakdown of the playoff odds and chances and what they needed to do to get in and all of that kind of stuff. Whenever we were kind of keyed in on that and focused on that, I said at the time, I noted at the time, that the least valuable games that you'll have left on your schedule are against the teams that don't really factor into your playoff picture and your playoff scenarios. And that is this set of games, starting with Sunday's game against this past game against the Arizona Cardinals and the one coming up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Those are the games that you could most afford to lose, but also absolutely needed to win, given who those opponents are and what losing to them would represent. And not even just losing, but not playing well. Having a lackluster showing against one of those teams would not say a whole lot of good about your team if that were to happen. And sure enough, the Texans handled business, put up a 40 burger. This one wasn't really competitive from the very beginning. And this is actually where I want to start. CJ Stroud, okay? So I got 5 either players or position groups that I want to focus on and acknowledge from this game. Okay. And I'm just going to get the quarterback out of the way, CJ Stroud. I feel like we might as well do that since he did have a good game. And we understand that the quarterback position is the most important one. I'm not breaking news there. But it is worth noting that CJ Stroud had a wildly efficient game in this one. He goes 22 of 29, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, a passer rating of 137.1. So it's a wildly efficient game from CJ Stroud. And not just that, but the thing that they really wanted to focus on, the thing that they wanted to key in on whenever you heard us talking to D'Amico Ryans, CJ Stroud himself, offensive coordinator Nick Caley throughout the week, the thing that they wanted to focus on more so was having a cleaner operation. Of course, they want to be able to run the ball, but they want to have a cleaner operation, penalty free, and to basically not beat themselves. I've talked about this. The formula for the Texans seems to be, and the best thing that they do offensively, especially leading up to today, was possess the ball, right? Possess the ball and not give the ball away. And then when you don't have the ball, to just simply allow your defense to pin its ears back and to eat and to cook. And that's what they have been doing. And so when we talk about CJ Stroud's wildly efficient game, it's important the fact that there are no turnovers, that we're only talking about one sack, and that he's 22 for 29. And even though it's not like a 300, 400-yard passing game, 260 yards on that type of efficiency with 3 touchdowns is not something to sneeze at. And I thought when it comes to the point that I'm making about the cleaner operation, that looked like outside of the 5 penalties that they got as a team, and of course you had the illegal procedure on Blake Fisher. He had the 2 penalties, right, where they say he didn't report when he's supposed to report eligible. There's some dispute on that, on whether that's actually true. And then, of course, where he lines up all sides. You had a couple of the Blake Fisher penalties that make you really think, like, man, now that they got their tight ends healthy, how much of that Blake Fisher stuff do they really need to be doing anyway? That was kind of my thought on it. But like outside of that, wildly efficient game from CJ Stroud. And this was D'Amico Ryans after the game. I got to attend the post game press conference and talk to D'Amico Ryans. We'll hear from him and CJ Stroud throughout this live program. And y'all feel free to jump in the chat, jump in the comments. I see some of y'all in here already. But this is what D'Amico Ryans had to say about CJ Stroud and the overall operation from the offense.
Our operation was really great today. CJ, starting with CJ, I thought he did a great job of managing the operation pre-snap, in and out of the huddle. Like, he did an outstanding job today. It starts with him. It starts with Kaylee getting the calls in, going to CJ. I thought the communication was seamless. I thought the guys did a great job communicating, breaking the huddle, getting lined up, and that's low-hanging fruit for us, right? And we did a better job of improving that, and now we got to find a way to still finish. There's still some things that we left out there, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well. We left a lot of plays out there that we just have to keep playing up to our standard, right? And that's all. That's what we judge ourselves against, the standard. The standard is a standard. It doesn't change, so we'll continue to look at the tape intently to see where we can get better.
All right, so that's D'Amico Ryans talking about CJ Stroud, the operation overall. This was a complaint from the Kansas City Chiefs game, despite winning that game. The whole not ignoring in victory what you wouldn't in defeat. This was something that they didn't want to ignore. Some of the urgency that they talked about, and not getting the play calls in quick enough, and just not being sharp enough pre and post snap. But they didn't have those problems today. It was a wildly efficient game from both the offense and CJ Stroud. I figured he was worth acknowledging off the top. Another one is Nico Collins. All right. Nico Collins deserves it. And since I mentioned CJ Stroud, I should point out he had a couple of throws in this game. And I do this every game now where CJ Stroud has a moment or has a couple of throws where I'm like, yo, that is the reason why CJ Stroud is who he is. Why, like, you can be as frustrated as you want to be or complain as much as you want about it not looking the same as his rookie season, or feel however you want to feel about CJ Stroud. Maybe you fell in love with Davis Mills in the 3 games that he started in place of CJ Stroud while he had the concussion. But he has a handful of plays every game where you're like, well, wait a minute. That's a little bit different. That's a little bit different from what you normally expect from just like run-of-the-mill, whoever your starting quarterback is. And he had that literally in the second play of the game. Okay, and this is what I want to hit on with Nico Collins. And Nico Collins impacts the game immediately. He's the next Texan that I want to acknowledge because, and really for a couple of reasons, because I think it's real easy to get frustrated with the fact, or whenever it happens that Nico Collins doesn't get the ball a lot, or you look up in the game and you're wondering, where's Nico Collins, or why aren't they getting the ball to Nico Collins more, or when was the last time that Nico Collins touched the ball? I think it's important to note, especially in a game like this, where he impacts it immediately. Immediately. Second play of the game, the throw that CJ Stroud made to Nico Collins was sublime. Nico Collins beats man coverage and then really does the rest of the work. And not only does he impact the game, like, obviously with the 50 something yard touchdown, but also really just sets the tone and serves as like a reminder for the other team that, yo, this is the dude. This is the exact dude that you put on the scouting report. This is like the whatever the scouting report was on Nico Collins as their best player and as an impact player and as one of the better players in the NFL. He shows you that on the second play of the game, and now you got to account for that. Now that's got to be in the back of your mind. Now that's got to be like something that you're focused on, right? Like, how do we prevent this guy from doing that thing again? So I thought that part was significant. That Nico Collins, even though he only had the 3 catches for 85 yards, he impacts the game immediately, and obviously scores the touchdown. And then with his 85 yards, he passes or not passes. He joins Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins as the 3 Texans wide receivers to have 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And that, of course, coincides with the CJ Stroud tenure, right? So basically, ever since CJ Stroud stepped on the scene, now Nico Collins gets 1,000 yards per season. So that was really cool to see. And we did have D'Amico Ryans talking about Nico Collins accomplishing that feat and just how he stepped up as a leader.
That's big playmaker. Nico is unstoppable. I mean, he does a great job. Anytime the ball is in his vicinity, like I know he's some type of way he's coming down with the football. He a guy who doesn't say much, but he's had an outstanding year again. Like, and we're not even done. And then he's, eclipsed that 1,000-yard mark again. I was just proud of him for how he shows up, the consistency at which he operates with every single week, the joy that he brings and shows up with, the smile, the energy on his, like, it's unmatched. So you love to see a guy like that doing well. All right, he's not able to do that without CJ, him finding that connection. So they've done a really great job, and we got one call back on one of his biggest plays. I hate that for him, but he shows up no matter what the coverage is, no matter who he's up against. He's always going to show up big for us in any game.
Yeah, and look, that's what a player of that caliber is supposed to do. And look, again, you set the tone, get it to Nico Collins early. I asked CJ Stroud about that, like, what does it do for the team, like, that's already confident, already has a certain level of swag and bravado to it, but to get a play like that early in the game, kind of set the tone. What does that do for him? This is what CJ Stroud had to say after I asked him that.
A throw like that to Nico early in the game, and he houses it like that. Obviously, already go into the game pretty confident guy. What does that do for, to confidence and the swag going forward to kind of start the game like that? I think it was like the second play of the game.
Yeah, it's always big. That was a goal of ours, was to start fast. So, I thought, Nick did a great job of creating separation. Before the snap, I'm like, hey, man, stay alive right here. Like they a lot of situations in there, we knew where they were going, man. So, he beat his man. I beat the help, and he, turned good into great.
Yeah, man, that is the idea, right? So, like, and again, I had this going in the press box of watching the game and thinking, like, where's Nico Collins? Why don't they get the ball to Nico Collins a little bit more? But you also got to keep in mind the impact, the instant impact that he provides, and the threat that he provides, and how he opens it up for everybody else. How many guys caught the ball or caught a pass from CJ Stroud today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different targets, or eight different guys targeted and who had catches, I should say, from CJ Stroud today. So again, wildly efficient, 22 of 29, and those 22 go to 8 different pass catchers. Pretty good. So Nico Collins, we've acknowledged C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins, guys who I think are obvious people to acknowledge. The next one is an unlikely character and somebody who I was not expecting to impact the game the way that they did. I was surprised, or not surprised, I should say, surprised a little bit, but more so curious about what this would look like since we hadn't seen Jawar Jordan really play any snaps, and we'd seen him in preseason. We had seen him in training camp, and we were aware of him. 6th-round pick out of Louisville in 2024, and had been cut and brought back on the practice squad, and not really somebody that seemed like factored into the mix when it came to their running back room, the overall makeup of it, despite some people kind of clamoring for it. But Jawar Jordan thrust into action because Nick Chubb missed the game with a rib injury, and then you got Woody Marks, who's already dealing with a foot and has just been playing. What a warrior, first of all, that Woody Marks is. Playing through injury through a good bit of the season and taking, becoming the number one running back for the team and kind of taking the overall load for the team. But in this one, deals with a little bit of an ankle injury. Jawar Jordan is somebody that they brought up from the practice squad. They had signed Cody Schrader, but cut him before he could even play, and then just decided to bring up Jawar Jordan from the practice squad as running back depth. And then he ended up being their lead back in this game because of the Woody Marks injury, and then being careful, it seems like, with Woody Marks. He only had 7 carries for 30 yards. But Jawar Jordan, in his first action, 15 carries for 101 yards, including the 50-yard run that he had in the third quarter. That was really impressive. A really, really impressive play. And he had a few that showed some explosiveness and some savviness, that made you think like this guy's been buried either on the practice squad or not on the team at all, and they've had questions that they've had at running back. They've had Joe Mixon miss the entire season. They end up cutting Damian Pierce during the season. You got Nick Chubb, who's filling in admirably for you, but is an older and has been injured running back. Not saying he's a has been, but a running back who has been injured. Of course, Woody Marks is a rookie, and Jawar Jordan essentially is a rookie getting his first action here. But this is a talent it seems like they should have tapped into before now. This is somebody that it seems like should be on their running back depth chart ahead of guys that have been on their running back depth chart so far this season. This is somebody who I think made a case in this game in what seems like otherwise a meaningless game against the Arizona Cardinals. A meaningful thing that happened is that Jawar Jordan feels like he emerged, or at least made a case for backup running back behind Woody Marks. Like, even when Nick Chubb gets back, that's just bone. Now you got Nick Chubb as running back depth. Now Dario Goombawale can be in his proper role as a special teams ace, but somebody that you can rely on to play snaps for you if you absolutely need it. But if you got Woody Marks, Jawar Jordan, and Nick Chubb, you're hoping that you don't need it. His performance today showed me something. And I know that's the most patronizing, sometimes the most patronizing compliment that you can give somebody, but it did. I think it not just showed me something. I think more importantly, probably revealed to the team, right? Like, can a guy who practices well and who does well in preseason games, can it translate in the regular season game late in the season when we really need it, when our depth is tested? Like, Jawar Jordan did that, and I think made a case for him to get more snaps, or to at least be a part of things going forward as they try to be this run first operation, right? They want to be, I don't know if run first is the proper way to put it, but they want to establish the run game. This is something that they want to do. This is a part of their identity. Whenever we talk about what is the team's identity, that's what they say they want it to be. So yeah, that to me was revealing. This was actually D'Amico Ryans talking about what Jawar Jordan brought to the table on Sunday.
Jawar did an outstanding job for us. For the young man to come in and for his first game to have a debut like he had. I mean, of course, he broke a record, most yards as a Texan in their debut game. He ran the ball very, very well, efficient, showed the explosiveness, showed the speed that he has and that we've seen in practice and he's been on practice squad for us. It just shows again, like, whenever your number is called, are you ready for that opportunity? And no one knows until you get that moment. And it's about you taking advantage of that moment and not looking back. And I thought Jawar handled it very well.
So we'll see what that means. Like, what does that end up meaning for Jawar Jordan and his future with the team? What does that mean for the running back room? Did they find something? I've been asking this question the last couple of weeks of CJ Stroud, of Nick Caley, when it comes to the offense. What are they trying to Is there anything about the offense, and if so, what, that they're trying to unlock, that they're trying to unlock in the offense? And the answers that we keep getting are fairly mundane answers about a cleaner operation and just kind of mastering what it is that they're already doing, which is predictable. But the unpredictable thing is like a player, a playmaker emerging that you did not necessarily see coming, that you didn't necessarily predict, that you didn't think would be. Like when we talk about this, who are the weapons? We know about Nico Collins. We've seen Jaden Higgins start to emerge. Christian Kirk is somebody that's had a disappointingly quiet season, but we know about Christian Kirk. We think that there's something there with Jalen Noel, and there's a question, and I'll get to him in a second. There's a question about why isn't he more involved in the offense? But we know about Dalton Schultz. We've come to know about Woody Marks. What else is like, and these are the things that have been revealed over the course of the season, but what else is there? And whatever it is it enough? Is it enough? I don't want to overreact to one game against a bad team, but that still was an NFL team out there, and Jawar Jordan looks like a legitimate NFL player. And we'll see how he factors into the mix at running back going forward. I'm very, very much intrigued by that. See, do we have anything else on Jawar Jordan? I think Stroud talked about him as well. Let's hear from Stroud on Jawar Jordan having such an impressive debut.
Yeah, man, Jar's my dog, somebody, who I got to see come in and, put in work and been making plays for a long time at practice and camp, in preseason games. And, he gets a shot today, and I thought he took full advantage. He's a brother in Christ, and, I know he was relying on the Lord. And, I'm just super proud of him and, his ability, to make cuts and, set up blocks. I thought he did a great job, and he's super fast. So I tried to get out there on one of them and block for him, and he a little too fast for me. But I thought he did amazing today. I'm super proud of him.
All right, so the next set of and group of Texans that I want to acknowledge from this game is the special teams, man. And we talk about Jawar Jordan, somebody that really hadn't too much pistol drop out there and got his first piece of action. Jalen Noel, who I just mentioned a moment ago, not as active in the offense as a lot of people want him to be. But I think Sean Pendergast made this point on the Sports Radio 610 official Texans post-game show, and I sat next to Sean during this game. But it was during the post-game show that he made the point that for where Jalen Noel was drafted and just for what the team needed overall, like that pick already feels like a success, seems like a success. Jalen Noel goes out there and gets you. He had a couple of really nice returns for you. And let's see, what was it was the 69-yarder. It was the 69-yarder that set up the Dalton Schultz touchdown. And that flips the field, right? Jalen Noel, Jamal Hill earlier in the game. Okay, so I talked about the Nico Collins play. Immediately after the Nico Collins touchdown, which is just 2 plays into the game, you get Jamal Hill forcing a fumble on the kickoff return. Daria Gumbawale recovers it. And that's when the red zone woes pop up. When you're like, oh, here we go again. The Texans settling for field goals. They had to do that on this possession. but that part is not Jamal Hill's fault. Jamal Hill and Daria Gumbawale did their part, right? Just like Jalen Noel did his part with the 69-yard return. The only difference is with Noel, the offense actually cashed in and got in the end zone. And with Jamal Hill and Daria Gumbawale's play, they had to settle for the field goal. That's one of the things that they got to figure out, that they got to get better at for sure. But special teams is something that's been strong for the Texans for a long time. Whether they were good or not, special teams has always been reliable. This year, it's been a little bit more up and down than it has been in previous years. But this was definitely up, this particular game. So I want to acknowledge Jalen Noel specifically as somebody who, while does not get involved in the offense as much as a lot of people want him to, what he's providing you in the kicking game is very much valuable. Very, very much valuable. So yeah, no, I thought that was I thought that was really good stuff. I think this is, let's see, we got D'Amico Ryans talking about how the kicking game and how special teams contributed to this one.
I do want to compliment our special teams. For Jamal Hill, the way he came out on kickoff and really set the tone for our special teams unit, that's what we needed. We needed that big play. One of our keys to victory was taking the ball on special teams. He comes out and he does that. So it was great to see him make an impact play there. And also for our just blocking unit, all the guys did a great job of blocking, allowing Jay Noel to hit some explosive returns, something we've been missing a lot in our return game. We've been one guy away. And I felt like we did a great job of sustaining our blocks today. And when we do it the right way and we do it well, we have an explosive returner that can flip the field for us. So really proud of our special teams. Not only them, Tommy did an outstanding job punting the football, giving us a backed up op. We're able to go 3 and out there late in the game and capitalize with points. So it's beautiful to see it done the right way. So really proud of everybody.
Yeah, explosive returner that can flip the field for you. And that's not just hyperbole on the part of the head coach giving his player a pat on the back. I mean, that's real right there. Jalen Noel, they may not have figured it out exactly how to have him impact the offense in a major way just yet, but as a returner, and this was in the scouting report, this was in the scouting profile of Jalen Noel when they drafted him, that he was somebody that could contribute on special teams in the return game, and he's doing that. So yeah, no, I think that he absolutely deserves some acknowledgement. More from D'Amico Ryans here on this is. Oh, look, so let's move on. Let's move on to the interior defensive line, because that is the final piece of this that I want to acknowledge. I just feel like, Daniil Hunter had another sack in this game, and that's his 12th of the year. Will Anderson, I thought, was disruptive in this game. And look, the defense gave up 20 points, but overall, they still show as just like a menacing ball hawking defense. Like that part of it still shows. But I wanted to acknowledge the interior defensive line, because not only do you have these edge rushers that are Pro Bowl, all pro level, and Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, but you've got guys on the interior that I feel like are just contributing in a major way and are never going to get that kind of shine. Like when you talk about Tommy Togiai and I think Sheldon Rankins and Azeez Al-Shaair are probably the most underrated players on the defense at this point. Azeez is having an incredible year, led the team in tackles again today, as you would expect a middle linebacker his caliber to do. But he did that. Sheldon Rankins is another guy who just doesn't get a whole lot of press, and those are guys who are not going to do a lot for the algorithm, right? You write them in a headline, you write them in a story or in a social media post or whatever on YouTube. It's not going to do major numbers talking about those guys, but they're absolutely contributing to winning, from Sheldon Rankins to Tommy Togiai to Mario Edwards. You think about Tim Settle before he got hurt. Danico Autry, no matter where they line him up, it seems like, whether it's on the interior or on the edge, he's liable to get his hand up and bat a ball, get his hand on a quarterback or somebody in the backfield, knock down a kick or a punt or whatever it is. Like he is a disruption. He is a problem. He seems like a nightmare, hell to deal with when the ball snaps. So I asked D'Amico Ryans about how the interior defensive line is complementing everything else that they do defensively, and this is what he had to say.
Our defense doesn't go without our interior guys playing big for us. All right, starting with Rankins, Tommy, like they do an outstanding job. Rio steps in. Like we roll those guys a lot, try to keep them as fresh as possible, and they do a great job. We understand we have some difficult run schemes that we'll see, a lot of gap run schemes that people try to attack us with, and those guys do an outstanding job playing with awareness, but also still playing physical, right? Getting after it, condensing the pocket, allowing our edge rushers to do what they do, right, and really swarm on the edges. But we can't play great defense without those guys up front. So I thought, Coach Rod has done a great job, working with that entire D-line, and really hats off to the interior guys where it's grimy, it's tough on the inside. They don't get a lot of love, but they are the most important piece for us.
Yeah, man, the edge guys, right? The edge guys are the ones that are going to get all of the press. And we acknowledge that they got playmakers at every level, right? So you got the edge guys. And then you got Jalen Petrie, who is a slot corner linebacker safety type, plays a lot around the line of scrimmage, but just kind of is a do-it-all kind of guy, who you could say is like their next playmaker beyond just the defensive line. And then, of course, this secondary is, they're maniacs out there, man. Like Derek Stingley Jr., probably the best corner in the league. Kamari Lassiter, they have touted as probably the best tackling corner in the league. And that showed up in this game. He had a couple of plays where he looked like an outright maniac out there. And then he goes out there and gets an interception and gets his, fourth interception of the season, to where I said, man, F it. Kamari Lassiter all pro. Let's go. Kamari Lassiter all pro. Why not? Who says no? I think we can acknowledge that they got playmakers all around, but the guys that we don't really think of in that way, I think, are the interior guys. And if you would have asked about the Texans' weaknesses going into the season, I think going into the season, most people would have said the offensive line and trying to figure that part out. The offensive coordinator being a first-year play caller and trying to figure that out. But then on the defensive side, while it looks impressive on paper, you would have to say that the weakness would be on the interior defensive line, where they don't have a notable name. But then you look up, and to hell with a notable name. What they need a notable name for, when Tommy Togiai, Sheldon Rankins, and again, Tim Settle before he got hurt, and Mario Edwards are out there, and Danico Autry when they put him inside, their edge guys when they put them inside. Like the defensive line overall is just working in concert, and it's a great thing to see. It's something that I think you can't talk about how good this defense is without acknowledging those guys. I'm going to give y'all a little bonus here on the offensive line, just because D'Amico Ryans was asked about it after the game. The offensive line, man, I done lost track of how many games now. This is 7 games with this offensive line, 6, 7 games now with this iteration of the offensive line, and it looks pretty good. C.J. Stroud was sacked one time in this game, but they were also able to really run the ball, so not a whole lot of sacks, and they were able to run the football at a decent clip. We talked about Jawar Jordan earlier. So D'Amico Ryans was asked about the offensive line and what he saw from them in this game. He's going to have to go look at the tape to really break it down. But from what it seemed, or from the way it looked, the offensive line showed up to play today.
I'll have to go back and look at the film, but from my vantage point, it looked like we were finishing blocks a little bit better today. Still always room to clean some things up, but for the most part, I thought we finished better. Therefore, we were able to have, I think, a better average in the run game today.
And then one more on just the importance of the run game. We already kind of understand that, but let's just hear the coach speak to it because I think this is just vital on like them being balanced, them being able to stay on schedule, them being able to again possess the ball. You possess the ball and you limit the risk of turnovers by running the football. And so it just makes sense for them to want to do that. This is D'Amico Ryans talking about
The
that.
run game is always the key for me. It's like we were able to execute it better today, but that's always the key going in. Like you have to be able to run the football really well, no matter who you're playing against, no matter where you're playing. So to see it like show up today, hopefully the guys understand that's the formula. We just have to stick with it.
Yeah, that is the formula, and we talked, earlier in the show and in previous shows about the formula for this team to win: possess the ball, don't turn it over, and to do that, you got to run it effectively. So those are the ones that I want to acknowledge. That is the gist of it. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to point out that let's just take a look around the league and how the Texans didn't really get a whole lot of help. Despite the fact that they won this game and there were some teams that could have helped them out, they didn't get the help that we were hoping that they would get. Um, we had the Patriots losing to the Bills, and that seemed like a really good game. I wasn't able to watch it, but I was following it, and it seemed like a really nice back and forth. And the Patriots were up, right, 21-0 in that game at one point. And credit to the Buffalo Bills for fighting their way back. But yeah, the Bills beat the Patriots 35-31. You had the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the New York Jets 48. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the New York Jets 48-20. So the Jets didn't do you any favors. The Patriots didn't do you any favors. And then you got the Chargers beating the Chiefs 16-13, where of course the Chiefs didn't do you any favors. But worse than that, and I would say more important than that, toward the end of the game, Patrick Mahomes goes down with a torn ACL, what has now been confirmed as a torn ACL. And look, rivalry and pettiness aside, I was looking forward to dancing on the Chiefs' grave after this game, just because I'm another person that not only has Chiefs fatigue, but they have been in the way of the Texans as well. It's not to say that if the Chiefs didn't exist, that the Texans would have a Super Bowl or anything by now, but they were up significantly against them in 2019, and the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl. So, and of course, that's been the team that's been in the way of everybody for the last half decade plus. So, um, or yeah, longer than that, 6 7 years or so, however long it's been. So, look, I was ready to dance on the grave of the Chiefs and them not making the playoffs and all of that, and I was looking forward uh, to that. I did want them to win this game because I thought it was more important for the Chargers to lose than for the Chiefs to lose. But if the Chiefs did lose, I wasn't gonna cry about it. I wasn't gonna be upset about it. I didn't cry about Patrick Mahomes tearing his ACL, but it did make my stomach churn just a little bit. It did make me a little bit sick to my stomach, not because I'm just such a big Patrick Mahomes fan. I think it's kind of easy to start hating the front runner or start hating the guy that's having a lot of success. But man, Patrick Mahomes largely is non-problematic and harmless and is a hell of a football player. The NFL is better. Football is better with Patrick Mahomes in it and playing it. And so to that end, it is very unfortunate to see him go down. It presents a whole new set of questions about what next season looks like, right? I think for a lot of Chiefs fans, and again, we'll talk to Ron the show Hughley tomorrow about some of this. But I think for a lot of Chiefs fans, it was going to be about accepting that this was a weird year, a down year, not their year, but they would try to retool and be right. Are they going to go back and get Tyreek Hill and add to their receiving core and be right back in the mix next year, especially, with Patrick Mahomes still in his prime. Now he tears his ACL. That's causing the question of how long it's going to take or or like when is he going to be back and really ready to be Patrick Mahomes again? That is a question that I don't know the answer to. I don't think the Chiefs know the answer to, and it has to color their offseason and color their view of their future. The AFC, unfortunately, in this way, just got a lot more interesting, not just right now, but going forward, right? We got this season to play out, but then you also got next season to kind of figure out what do the Chiefs look like? What does that whole dynasty look like with Patrick Mahomes injured, tearing his ACL? Really, really unfortunate news. And don't want to see that, but them's the breaks, and it happens at the end of the game. Like, I'm not sure if the Chiefs win that game anyway if Pat doesn't get hurt, but it happens at the end of the game, and they're trying to fight for their season, a season that doesn't really seem like it's even worth fighting for anymore. Their chances of making the postseason, even if they do win that game, are still not all that great. They're still going to need quite a bit of help after losing to the Texans the previous week. And there Patrick Mahomes is trying to make a play, trying to make something happen for him in a season that's lost anyway. It felt empty. It felt pointless. It did not feel worth what it means with Patrick Mahomes not being out there. So, and then of course, I think it was Gardner Minshew that comes in there for him, throws a pick, and that's all she wrote. So, um, hate to see Patrick Mahomes go down like that. Um, and also hope that they would beat the Chargers, because that helps you. That helps you as a Texans fan if they do that. So, so they didn't do that. Patrick Mahomes gets tears his ACL. That's that's about as bad of an outcome, about as bad of an ending to a season that was already terrible as you could expect. I can only imagine what my Kansas City guys, Ron the Show Hughley, some of my Foolish Club media folks that are also Kansas City guys, Nick Wright, who I'm also friendly with and know personally. I can just imagine, and I'll be interested to see what some of his content looks like this week, because it's got to be, man, if they did that bit last week on First Things First, Nick Wright and Chris Broussard did this bit, since Broussard is like a Lamar Jackson Ravens guy, and they're reeling. And then Nick Wright is obviously a Kansas City Chiefs guy, and they lose to the Texans, which all but buries their season. They did a cool little bit on First Things First where Chris Broussard is all bandaged up and beat up, and he's pushing a stretcher. He's pushing Nick Wright on a stretcher, and he's barely, like basically barely breathing, basically to symbolize where their respective teams are in the moment. If that's the bit that they did this past week, man, I can't imagine. And you're probably not going to want to make a joke about this with Patrick Mahomes actually tearing his ACL, but I can't imagine what the tone is going to be on that show. So I'm actually looking forward to see what they have to say about it. Let's see. What do we got here in the comment section before we get out of here? Oh yeah, and of course I did not mention Micah Parsons. That was the one that I did not see, and I just saw the social media, saw the Patrick Mahomes injury. That game was playing at the same time as the Texans. When the Micah Parsons thing happened, I was in transport, and just seeing that on social media, him tearing his ACL, that is significant. Obviously, so what a rough day, right? You get the Texans win, but they win one of their less meaningful games on their schedule. So like big whoop, but two of the marquee players in the league, one on each side of the ball, goes down with an injury. That is really rough. To lose Patrick Mahomes and Micah Parsons both to torn ACLs on the same day is really rough. Now, obviously, the Chiefs weren't going to be involved in the postseason, and it looks like the Packers will be, more than likely. Hell, I think so. Who knows how this is going to impact them going forward in the season? They're the 7th seed, just like the Texans are, with the Lions just a game behind them. So I'm thinking that they're still going to go to the playoffs. But this is a rough moment for the league, I think, to lose players like that to ACL on the same day. Now, as it pertains to the Packers, though, I do want to make this point of just the difference between the two conferences, at least the way that I see them. This really hurts the Packers because I view them, despite the fact that they are behind the Bears officially right now in their division, and and if that's going to be the case, they could end up being, the fluctuate between number 2 seed and wild card is like the the difference in possibility for them, or number 2 seed and last wild card is what I'm saying. But in the NFC, the Packers are among, like, out of the 7 teams in the playoffs, I feel like 6 of them could go to the Super Bowl and maybe even win it. Right? If you just look down the list, Rams, probably the best team in the NFC. The Bears, a surprise of the season, but look legitimate. 10-4, look like they could actually make a run, whether people believe it or not. The Eagles have been a real weird story this year, but this is kind of what they do in the regular season. They kind of slug their way through the regular season, and then they flip a switch in the postseason. So they win this division, and you got to think of them as the Eagles, right? Like, you kind of got to forget some of the pitiful offense that you've seen and some of the rhetoric that's come out of there, and think of them as the defending Super Bowl champions that must be taken seriously. You think about the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Packers. The only team that I wouldn't take seriously in NFC is whoever ends up making it out of the South. That's an unserious division, and I don't think there's a contender among them. But outside of that, every one of these teams, Rams, Bears, Eagles, Seahawks, 49ers, Packers, all of those feel like teams that could win, that could go to the Super Bowl. The Packers now feel like less so with a torn ACL to Micah Parsons. They feel less so. Now maybe they're still in the mix. We'll see how their season ends and how they look without Micah Parsons. But a big part of that defense, a big reason why they are where they are right now, and without him, I have to look at them differently from those other 5 teams in the NFC that I was talking about. So, yeah. Got a comment here that says Packers fans got it so bad. Yeah, no, they did. They definitely did. Let's just look around the league, kind of some things that are happening. Look out, man. We got up to a few people in this chat, man. Y'all come through with any questions y'all got any, man. I've pretty much gone over everything that I wanted to. Like I mentioned before, I'm gonna have Ron the show Hughley on at some point tomorrow. We're gonna record probably before he gets to his show and before I get to the Texans locker room and all of that kind of stuff. We'll get something in and hopefully have something out there for y'all by the afternoon, kind of talking more about where the Texans are right now. Sitting pretty, honestly, sitting pretty at 9-5, still with an opportunity to catch the Jacksonville Jaguars, even though I'm not so sure they're going to be able to do it. But I like their spot in the wild card. I would have liked it if the Patriots could have done us some favors today and beat the Bills. That would have been nice. Would have been nice if the Chiefs, had done a little bit more against the Chargers, and certainly, no injury to Patrick Mahomes. That'd have been great. That'd have been great to see. I don't know what we could have really expected from the Jets against the Jaguars, but it would have been nice if they had made themselves useful as well. They didn't do that. So, yeah. Texans going to the Super Bowl. I don't know about all of that. But hey, but you know what? I will say, and I've been making this point, there's not a compelling case to make against it, right? Don't you wouldn't you say that? Like, there's not a. So here's the thing. And I was going to mention. I'm glad that we got this comment from Janae here. The difference between the NFC and the AFC. Let's include the Packers into this comment just for the sake of it. Kind of forget about the Micah Parsons injury for just a second. It felt like going into this day, going into Sunday, that again, 6 of the 7 teams in the NFC that are currently in the playoff picture could legitimately go to the Super Bowl and even win it. And not just because of parity or parity for the sake of parity, but because all of those teams actually look like legitimate conference championship, Super Bowl type of teams, right? From the Rams to the Bears to the Eagles, Seahawks, 49ers, and Packers. All of them feel like teams where if they showed up in the conference in the NFC conference championship, you're gonna be like, yeah, no, that sounds about right based on how they've played, right? And then in the AFC, I would say it's a similar thing about 6 of the 7 teams could go to the Super Bowl. Like, look at it right now. I would say similarly to the NFC, where you got the South, where you don't think that there's anybody that could really actually go and win it. That's how I feel about the AFC North this year. Oddly enough, historically one of the stronger divisions in football. But whoever wins that, whether it's the Steelers, whether it's the Ravens, whoever comes out of the AFC North, I'm not going to really view them as much of a, a Super Bowl contender. Now, the Ravens, I think, are kind of complicated because they got an MVP who hasn't been playing like an MVP, and you don't really want to just like count them out completely, but they don't feel like a Super Bowl contender. The Steelers certainly don't feel like a Super Bowl contender. But everybody else that's in the playoff picture, including the Texans, the Denver Broncos, the New England Patriots, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Chargers, the Bills, the Texans, I can make a case for each and every one of them as far as going to the Super Bowl. But the difference between them and the NFC is that I don't feel like any of us are really sure of which of those teams are really, really good or actually good. Like, again, I think all of those NFC teams that I mentioned are actually good. I'm not sure which ones of the AFC ones are really that good. Or maybe a better way to put it is that every one of those teams seems to either be a little bit more flawed or less convincing. Like the Broncos, what do they won? Like 11 games in a row or something crazy like that. Number 1 seed right now. They're in. No one's convinced. I don't think anybody really believes in the Bo Nix thing, despite how it's looked with Sean Payton and that defense and them rattling off all of these wins. Man, we watched them. I guess I cannot unsee the Broncos game, despite them winning it. I cannot unsee that Broncos Texans game where Bo Nix just looked so underwhelming. I can't unsee it. So I'm not there with the Broncos. The Patriots, and Janae mentioned this, the Patriots are the biggest threat. I would agree with that. They're probably the one team that actually looks like what their record is. Like, does not feel like fool's gold when you watch them. But everybody else, the Jaguars, come on now. I know this is a Houston-centric, Texan-centric podcast, and y'all know how I feel about the Jaguars. Maybe I'm a little bit biased here. And you know what? I'll be honest too. The last couple of times that I've watched Trevor Lawrence, I feel like I might owe dude some apologies. I mean, he has started to look every bit like what people said he was as of late. But I have not been sold on the Jacksonville Jaguars a day in my life, and I have not waited to this big age to start. So that is, I think they are both flawed and unconvincing. Chargers the same thing. Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Chargers might as well be that Spider-Man meme, right? Then the Bills, you can run the ball all over them. And Josh Allen has just kind of been making that the whole thing work. And I don't think you can count them out. I think you have to take the Bills seriously as long as Josh Allen is out there playing quarterback and is healthy. But I mean, y'all saw what the Texans did to them. Texans own the Bills. Kind of what Breeze 83 is saying here. No one scares me in the whole AFC. The top two teams in the AFC don't have playoff experience. And then the one that does is the Bills, a team that you own. You can live with that. You can definitely live with that. And then there's the Texans, who have the best defense in the league and are showing you over these last few weeks that while their offense might not be one of the more prolific offenses in football, they definitely have a quarterback that can make plays, and they got a handful of playmakers that can make plays for him. Say what you want about the offensive line or the play caller, whatever. The red zone efficiency earlier in the season and really up until recently, their third down efficiency. You can talk your talk about all of that, but they're out here making plays. Put up a 40 burger today against a real life. Oh, you know what I just realized? Just thought about this. This is actually what the Cardinals do. Give up 40 burgers. Remember that's something that we were talking about going into kind of going into the game throughout the week leading up to it. Is how they have given up 40 points to all of their division opponents. Isn't that crazy? And it's like, well, I don't think the Texans are going to score 40 on them because that's not what they do. But they should be able to do something against these jokers. And I'll be damned, man. They went out there and scored 42 or scored 40 as well, I should say. So yeah, that is that is life against the Cardinals defense, I guess. It's scoring 40 points. Stat game. They let Jawar Jordan come out here and have a career day. Shout out to Jawar Jordan, man. I can imagine. I didn't get to catch him in the locker room. Hopefully, I get to catch him at some point this week. Kind of talk to him about this. Maybe we can bring that to you on the podcast. But stat game. Call that a stat game. Janae's asking about the Phillip Rivers led Colts. They show heart, cuz they show heart out there, man. I'm not here to knock it. They show heart. They did not win. Seattle. If anything, Seattle need to be looking at themselves sideways of how it is they only beat the Phillip Rivers led Colts of a 44-year-old grandfather, and they only beat them by 2 points, 18-16, and they hung in there. I don't have any ill words for the Colts. Phillip Rivers, let's look at his number, at his stat line. 18-27, 120 yards. He had a pick, had a touchdown, had a pick. Was only sacked once. That's a victory right there for Phillip Rivers. I don't know how many times he was pressured or hit. Didn't get to really watch this game, but only sacked once. Looks like he had a passer rating of 73, not great. QBR of 52, not great. But he hung in there, man. Show heart. Gave him a chance to win from what I can tell. If I'm seeing this right, they were up at halftime. If I'm looking at this box score correctly, 13-6 Colts at I'm remembering this right actually, because we were looking at some of the scores during the game. 13-6 at halftime. I can't knock it. Hey Brian, I appreciate you, man. And tell other people, man, if they know anything about what we do on the radio, check us out. B Block Podcast. I'm gonna be doing a lot more of these. Live videos, recorded videos, shorts, all of that. So appreciate you subbing. And Brian, man, tell other people about it for sure. And for the audio only people that are listening to this is Brian Herrera on the YouTube chat saying that he didn't know that we had a YouTube channel and that he subbed. I would imagine that you, if you're listening to audio only, might not know that we've got a YouTube channel. Let me let you know. Come check us out. Since the Broncos are going to be our best friends next week, we'll see. We'll see. But hey, but look, here's the takeaway. I'm going to get out on this. Here's the takeaway that I did not hit on that is noteworthy. I keep going back to this kind of inflection point, the Thursday night football game against the Bills. And I started looking at the rest of the schedule. I said 6 games left. You're on a race to 4. You win 4 games, you're in. Well, they've played 3 of those games, and they have won all 3. 6 straight wins, by the way. But 3 of those games since I said that, and they've won all 3. All they really got to do, the Texans, that is win 1 more game, and they're basically in. And it does look like, if you just kind of just look at the stand, it does look like the AFC is kind of set. It feels like we'll see what happens with the North, but again, I don't think it really matters what happens with the North because I'm not expecting nobody out of the North to really do anything worth talking about. But everybody else, it feels like it's pretty much set. Now, what happens with Texans, Jaguars? They don't play each other, but are the Texans able to catch the Jaguars? Look, what I'm saying is, I think the Texans have a chance to win every one of these last 3 games. Will the Jaguars win every one of their last 3? Maybe. They're looking pretty good. I want to hate. This is the problem. I want to hate on them so bad, but it looks like they have a chance. Now, Broncos, going back to this comment from Brian, they got the Broncos next week. That might just be the game to watch. Let's just be real. Going back to Brian's point, Broncos going to be our best friends next week. If this is what they did to the Cardinals, and we see what just happened to the Raiders today against the Eagles, there's no excuse for that game to be mildly interesting. I'm going to be there. We're going to talk about it. I'll probably do another live. We'll have a good time. But there's no reason for that game to be any more compelling than this one was, and it wasn't. I just did an hour live on it, and I'm telling you here at the end how not a whole lot of suspense here. Not a whole lot of suspense in this game. Shouldn't be that much for the Texans next week against the Raiders anyway, which again leaves us with Broncos, Jags. Broncos at Jags. I think the Jags are going to beat the Colts on the road and probably beat the Titans because, I mean, why would they lose to them? Beat the Colts on the road, beat the Titans at home. It looks like the only shot that you really got, the best shot, I should say. Let's put it that way. The best shot that you got to tie is going to be the Broncos beating them next week. We'll see how that looks. See what that looks like. All right, we did this for an hour, man. And we got it up to, a couple dozen people in here. Y'all make me feel good about the whole thing, man. I'll probably do this again. That's what I'm thinking, right? So y'all let me know before I get out of here. Are y'all cool if I want to do lives on the regular? This is what I want to know. If I want to do lives on the regular, y'all fuck with your boy. Somebody let me know. Y'all fuck with your boy? That's what I want to know, man. I appreciate y'all, man. This has been really fun. B Block Podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out wherever it is you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Appreciate you. And until next time, y'all be good.